Okay, guys, we're at 3MA Audio in Houston, great dealership. Luis and Johnny, two of the owners, met them before ours started to kind of do a little walkthrough, and they set up the speakers for us. This is a little preface to tell you what you're going to see, because I kind of started recording mid Luis going through background on each of the speakers. And I think this will be helpful to show you guys, because at least I was educated on some of the background behind the Rockport speakers and the cabinet construction, which I wasn't aware of. And there's not a lot of things that surprised me, but this definitely did surprise me how much they put into the cabinet construction. And what was really ear opening is doing the knuckle wrap test on a YG versus Rockport. I was not expecting such a dramatic delta in those two knuckle wrap tests, and it being in the favor of Rockport. So there's also some interesting background Luis gives on the MBLs, the driver construction, some of the hardiness. They look delicate, but you're going to want to pay attention to that part, as well as the bandpass woofer module. He goes into some details there, but you don't have to listen to me. Why don't you just listen to him? So the next 30 minutes or so is some background. Then we're going to do some listening tests. I'll refer you to 3MA's Instagram page for the listening test, because they have an Instagram page and they are less draconian. Some of these clips may pass. I'm not going to be able to do the audio clips for YouTube, so I'll try to direct you there if you want to hear the listening test. But like I said, you're never going to really hear much through a cell phone camera. But if you're interested, I'll give you that in the description below. So stay tuned. I'll do a wrap up afterward and maybe interview Doug and get his thoughts and share that with all of you guys.
You're at that crossover point, the decibels of the tweeter start tapering down, and then when the mid-range starts to take over. So what they do is they build a waveguide that actually adds some decibel level to that crossover point. So let's say at 2,000 to 3,000 hertz, where it starts a crossover, instead of being 2-3 dB below what it's supposed to be at, you know, the waveguide makes it match much better. So you have a really standard wave across the frequency band. So, you know, you get a really, really full range speaker and full range sound like you're supposed to hear. Yeah. Instead of, you know, saying, well, this is the best I can do with this crossover, and then it's going to be a little bit lower whenever it's the 2,000 hertz because it's handing it off to the mid-range, right? So instead of doing that, they build a waveguide to help it. YG does the same thing. Another thing that YG does, they have the crossover. They put it in a billet aluminum housing, and I'm not sure how that works, but it makes it, you know, better from what they're saying. This is their entry level for Rockport. This is the Atria IIs, and then they go all the way up to Lyra. And in their Atria IIs, it's all wood construction, only one 9-inch bass driver, 6-inch mid-range with a 6.5-inch basket, so it gives it a lot more room to move, right? And this is a beryllium tweeter. So instead of using other metals, the beryllium gives it a lot more stiffness and helps with that ringing on the higher frequencies, right? Helps minimize that ringing. And when the ringing happens, it's a much higher frequency point than your traditional titanium or aluminum tweeter. The next level above is the Audiophile II, and it's a bigger cabinet. As the levels go up, the cabinet's get much bigger. And it adds it adds another 9-inch bass driver, same mid-range and tweeter. And then above that, which is probably competitors who what the 2.2s would be, or what this would be, it's a Cygnus. And in the Cygnus, the front baffle is actually aluminum. So it's billet, that's not it's cast aluminum, but the same really rigidity on the cabinet structure. Same type of drivers now. Instead of a 9-inch, they go up to a 10-inch. Drivers. Yeah, 10-inch drivers. 3.5 wood. And this is all aluminum construction. So really, really cool on this level. It's like nothing in the, so they have the inner shell.
Yeah.
It's all cast aluminum. And then the outer shell that this goes into. And then they fill it up with sound dampening material. And it just, like, it seals it up. Like, you can't take those shells out. Once they're put together, you can't take them out. But it's really, really neat. And, like, there's nobody in the industry that does it like these guys. But pretty impressive.
No, just do the knuckle wrap test again. I mean, I would not have expected this knuckle wrap test to beat this knuckle wrap. I don't know if you could pick that up in video, but that's pretty significant.
It's really significant.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. These weigh 600 pounds.
Whew.
Yeah. And, you know, what they try to do, they try to do a flagship, you know, cost no object speaker in a much smaller footprint than your traditional, you know, bass tower separate than your regular main speakers or your, you know, your humongous Wilsons and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I don't have that kind of room.
Exactly.
I mean, the more streamlined, the better.
They do it in a smaller footprint in order to fit into a lot of rooms, because like a lot of people in Asia have small homes, and Asia is a huge market for this stuff. And I mean, they just can't fit monster speakers in their house, right? So that's what they do. They build it in a smaller footprint and are able to get performance of, you know, a much larger footprint in this cabinet. But you see how they do, it's a cabinet within a cabinet, right? And then
sort of like the YGs, just in a different manner.
Yeah, the YGs are completely billet. This is on the Cygnus, which is the one below this. Just the front baffle is aluminum, and then it has the cabinet wood, just like this one. But you know, as you can see, minimal influence from the cabinet in the sound, because they're so dense, right? They do such a good job of dampening that cabinet.
That's from the Rockport website?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive that they went to this detail.
Yeah. So once they fill that up, that's it. You can't take it apart, right?
Wow.
I still haven't asked them, so what happens if a driver goes out?
Yeah,
How
what
I
do you
change
do?
it out, right? But yeah, I mean, it's
They'll
just,
tell you it never happens.
Yeah, they'll tell you it never happens, right?
No matter what you throw at it.
Well, they do have, I guess this plate will come on.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be a way.
And you can see it's got a groove.
Yeah.
So I guess this will slide. I don't know.
They're gonna have to have a way to get to it.
I guess that's why they have the slide out thing. I don't know. Well, no, but the thing is filling in between.
Yeah,
there.
this won't slide out.
Yeah.
You'll probably be able to access it somehow inside, but we still haven't. I know the crossover network, you can access it from the binding posts, but on this speaker, I still haven't asked them how. But I don't think.
So what's the one commensurate with, at least price-wise, with the MBLs for Rockport?
The price, what do you think?
The commensurate model from Rockport that's commensurate with the MBLs.
So that would be the Cygnus.
Cygnus?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Cygnus, which is the one that starts with the front aluminum baffle. Everything else on the line is wood, right?
Okay.
That Lyra, that's 169,000. That's all. That's the one that's all aluminum. That's their flagship. That would be like the extreme version on the MBLs or the XV version on YG. You know, that type of level for the Rockport. But on this, you're talking about Sonya 2.2s. You're talking about the Cygnus on the Rockport side, right?
And the Cygnus, is that the one that has the 10-inch driver?
Yes,
Okay.
it has two 10-inch drivers. 6-inch mid-range, and then the beryllium
That
tweeter.
probably makes a pretty big difference on the range.
Oh yeah. No, the Rockports will play great bass. I think it's probably going to be the one that plays the best bass out of all of them. But I mean, you'll listen and make your own assumptions.
How much taller would the other models be?
Cygnus.
The Cygnus, I can check for you. Let's see.
Because the only thing that, from my personal taste, it may be different from Doug, because he's used to box speakers about this size, but I like
Tall.
tall speakers because of the infinite. So, you know, it might be something he wants to change to kind of.
So this is the Cygnus, by the way. So you have the two 10-inch drivers, mid-range, and then the same beryllium tweeter with the waveguide. Much deeper cabinet.
Yeah, it's a totally different animal than this. Yeah.
Front baffle,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then these are their drivers, which is really good. All right, here we go. We got some dimensions
50
here.
inches.
So height, you're talking about 50 inches, 50.5.
And what are these right now?
So for the so these are 45.
Yeah, not,
So
not
50 inches would be right around here.
okay.
Does that include the feet? Typically, when they give you a size reference?
Actually, I think it doesn't. No, it doesn't include the feet.
So it'll be
with
a little
the
bit
feet,
taller than that. Yeah.
the feet will be a little bit taller, and then wide, the depth is 13 and a half. Let's see.
What's about that?
13 and a half, and then the width.
So is the tweeter height much higher with the other one, or do they?
It's yes, it's higher. So 13 and a half. So this depth, I don't know where to measure the depth from.
Is it from the base?
Height, width.
This is bigger than
Depth is
13.
27 and a half. So it's about here. So that would be, this is
Wow.
how wide it would,
That's
deep
a
it would be.
huge
That's
cabin.
a big difference.
Yeah,
What's
it's
the
a lot
weight?
more air. This one weighs
285.
285.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big hefty speaker. It's not.
What do the MBLs weigh, you know?
MBLs are not too heavy.
Yeah.
They're probably about 120 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit more, but
Most
not
of
more
the
than
weight
that.
is going to be in the base model.
Correct, because you in the MBLs you have a 12-inch aluminum cone driver shooting in a bandpass configuration in this speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a downward firing.
Well, it's a bandpass. So what it does is shoots into the cabinet, and then the only exposure to the outside world are
The ports.
right?
Yeah.
Is there a port in the back or just?
No, just
No,
these two,
It's
yeah.
ported in the front. Gotcha.
Just these two ports. And but it's, you know, it plays great bass. It has a big 12-inch driver, which allows it to play really nice deep bass.
Mm-hmm.
It also has something pretty interesting in the back. Let me take these cables out. We're not going to be using these. But in the back, there's something pretty interesting, which is the crossover network is all here. So the wiring from the binding post to the crossover network, you can choose what type of wiring you want. So you can choose between solid copper core, silver, or stranded copper. And that's the three settings you have available here. So it has
That's interesting.
three different wires going to from the binding post to the crossover.
Huh.
So you can choose whatever sound you like,
Mm-hmm.
and the different characteristics of a stranded wire, solid copper wire, solid copper core, or the silver wiring.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the only speaker that has that, at least that I've seen.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to play with some
And
root
you
correction
can,
stuff
yeah.
and just see sort of
So-
what that does to the.
Yeah, because if you're using like silver plated copper,
Mhm.
you may want to use silver wiring from the crossover. I mean, from the binding post to the crossover.
Yeah.
I don't know about those cables there. That thing is.
What cable?
Your little power snakes. Is that
Oh, the Omega from
Shanyata?
Shanyata, yeah. Those are pretty neat. Yeah. We're using Odin power cords for the monoblocks, and speaker cable with Odin interconnects coming from the source side.
Okay.
I'll show you a little bit about the MBL.
Yeah, let's see the MBL.
This is
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know how hardy these drivers are.
yeah, these are pretty interesting. So they use carbon fiber for their high frequency. It's their own type of woven carbon fiber. So it's not your traditional woven for the high frequency. They use a different pattern to allow it to maximize the high frequency output. So the you see, it's, I mean, if somebody pokes it, it's not going to damage your speaker, right? Because they're meant to flex, they're meant to oscillate and vibrate, and that's how the sound wave is created. But you have your tweeter, which is this small one up here, and then you have your mid-range. This plays full mid-range, right? And then on this one, you get the aluminum melon, which plays a mid-bass frequencies. So you have omnidirectional on tweeter, mid-range, and mid-bass, and then you have your 12-inch bandpass driver at the bottom. But how this works is it's fixed on the top, and then on the bottom it has a voice coil with a magnet, and then you have your music signal going into the top of the driver that has a wire going back down to the voice coil, and then that magnetic field then creates oscillation up and down, vibrating these weaves and creating sound waves. So the sound waves are then radiated in a 360 degree, across the entire room, and that's why it feels so much more lively than your traditional, pistonic front-facing driver.
I've seen these speakers at audio shows, but every time I've gone to listen to them, there's 30 people in the room.
Yes,
So I've never
and
been able
that's,
to really appreciate it. I mean, they're
that's the
beautiful
case, right?
to look at. They're very interesting design.
So not only is everything mid-range and up though unique with the radiation, but being a bandpass kind of sub is also different than what you get with a normal driver here. So that's going to be important to pay attention to the bass, the presentation. I know Doug Wilson, not from Wilson Audio, the dealer, not Doug Wilson, but he was always a big fan of bandpass subs.
It
So
makes it sound really unique.
yeah, so that'll be interesting to test.
Because it gives you, so when you're doing ported, when you're doing sealed enclosures, it allows you to play deeper bass, right? Because you're not, and then depending on how you're tuning the ports, you start tapering off at, I don't know, depending on the speaker, maybe 35, 40 hertz. Bandpass configuration gives you kind of like a merge between the two, allowing you to play deeper at much higher decibel levels. Because same thing happens that we were talking about earlier with the tweeter, right? When you start getting to that point where the speaker can't play that deep of a bass, the decibels on the bass starts to taper down. And that's kind of when subwoofers come into play. Like when you put the subwoofer in, you don't put it at the setting where your speaker can play full volume. You put it at a crossover setting where your speaker starts to taper off. So then the subwoofer picks up the slack, and then you get a really true full range. You start playing, 20, 25 hertz that your speakers can't play, no matter what speaker you get. This is true for anything pretty much without a active bass tower. The speakers just start tapering off, and then instead of hearing a nice pronounced 30 hertz signal, you're getting a much lower attenuated 30 hertz signal than what you should have. But that's where different manufacturers design their bass section in different ways. Some, like YG, does it sealed, right? That allows them to play lower frequencies, but then it doesn't give them the benefit of the port and being able to fill the room up as much as a ported speaker, right? But then you have different disadvantages with a port speaker, because then you start to taper off sooner, right? Sooner in that frequency band.
The port speakers will tend to get more play in the room as well. That's what I find with the ported speakers I've used. Is that it really makes a big difference whether you block one of the ports or where you put it.
Oh yeah.
So that factors in. These are
Now,
all passive subs that are in all these speakers.
Yeah, everything is passive in here. We don't have an active subwoofer anywhere.
Okay.
We will probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're gonna install active subwoofers in the main listening, in pretty much all the listening rooms, but just so the customer can have an idea of what a subwoofer will do, because it's not about being boomy. It's not about having more bass. It's about being able to play that entire frequency band, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where these speakers start to taper off, the subwoofer starts to grab its hand and take its straight line throughout. So we're probably going to have, eventually, I think we're going to be having an array of subwoofers in this room.
well, that's good to bring up because a lot of people, and y'all sell home theaters too, but
Yeah.
he's using his right now in a home theater too.
Yeah.
So he switches between the two.
Okay.
So his main channels are actually going to be part of a home theater.
Got it. All right. So that's good. I mean,
And he has subs already, like 3
Yeah.
subs, yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 subs currently, but I'm probably
what do you
gonna
use
skip,
for subs?
SVS.
SVS.
Yeah.
And then he's got a rhythmic one from Salk.
Okay.
So a servo sub, and then
Oh, servos are good.
two of the SVS, yeah.
Yeah. So we're just recently became a REL dealer, but I think REL does the combination of home theater and stereo really well,
Mm-hmm.
because the way they do it is they obviously they use the high level input, which is the best way to get the signal out of the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, you can tune the high level and the LFE separate. So you're getting the benefits of being able to hear bass out of dialogues, out of scenes in the movies where it's going left and right, or even the center channel. And then you also get the benefit of the LFE section, because your traditional subwoofer, you'll either connect it with an LFE or you're connected with stereo,
Right, one of
but
the-
they don't do both, right?
Right.
These have separate gains for LFE for the movies
Mm-hmm.
and for your stereo listening. So it'll still add that bass whenever your left and rights are being used in your center channel, and then you'll have the LFE effect whenever the LFE
Explosions
signal,
and-
yeah. So that's pretty neat that the way they do it. I don't know of anybody else in the industry that does it that way, and it just makes it so much more, because your typical center channel doesn't have a subwoofer, so you just miss so much out of that center channel.
Yeah.
And then when you add it to your high level input and an LFE, and it just brings everything together.
You could just buy 3 of these and then use the third one as your center.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
actually they sell.
I'm
that.
sure they do,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah.
They sell typically on the bookshelf version here, they have a center channel. You see, this one is the center. You can buy 2 of these and then buy the center, the 126 or the 120s, which still has the mid range and tweeter, same mid range and tweeter, but it'll have a push 6.5 inch driver pushing side to side.
Gotcha.
So kind
So
of gives
the
the
mid-bass.
same exactly
Yeah.
same exactly feel of something like the mid bass that we prefer. But yeah, I mean they sell a center channel, believe it or not.
Interesting. I've actually had Salk did a center channel for me and 2 surrounds as well as the sub, so I've been happy with that. But it is hard to integrate that with
stereo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically what happens is, and this is why most people don't have subwoofers, is that you'll typically get a problem with speed. So your mains will be fast, it'll be boom, 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 and then your sub will be lagging behind, and then it just sounds.
Yeah, the only way I've been able to work it is just using like a die rack. You know, you have a little bit of,
Oh, yeah.
you tweak it so
Yeah,
that you change,
that's why,
you change
yeah.
the speed and it waits a millisecond before.
Yeah.
But even that, so when I do critical listening or audiophile level listening, I usually just don't use
Don't
my
use the
subs. Or if I do, I have them dialed down, and I just try to really just do 2 channel, for that. But my kids want to watch a movie. It's
So it'll,
Everything.
when we get the subs here, it'll be interesting because the rails are fast enough to keep up with all this stuff. And the interesting thing is, like, you'll probably not be able to tell they're playing, but when they're off, you'll be like, what
What happened, right?
Like,
Yeah,
what happened?
the ground is sort of lifted.
Yeah.
Well, that's when you know they're dialed in right. If you can't
Yeah,
find where it's coming from, then you've done something
The
right.
thing is, Luis, everything you just told me is the same thing that the guy in the white van told me. That's where I got my speakers from, the white van. So what's the difference? Let's hear it.
Well, here the main difference, obviously, MBL.
No, I was just messing with you. I mean,
MBL is a totally.
I was just messing with
MBL
you.
is a totally different speaker.
Yeah. Then my white van speakers? Come on.
They're not white
Yeah.
van speakers. I love these speakers.
Yeah.
They're my favorite.
From a sexiness standpoint.
Yeah, it's
I
just
mean, you
looks
walk
so
in and
nice.
they're just jaw dropping, beautiful.
And yeah, and I don't even think this is their best color. I think the black with the silver.
Yeah, I mean, white, gold. They have the silver. Their piano finishes are great.
Yeah.
Black and gold really stands out.
Mhm.
That is true. And I mean, the grills are over there. We keep the grills off because we like, we like how they look. I'll put it on the grill for you. We like how they look without the grill. But
If you get dust collected on here, how easy is it to get that off? Is that a big deal?
you could take a Swiffer and wipe it
Just a
off.
Swiffer?
Like I showed you with the mid range and here with the mid range and tweeter assembly. I mean, this is not fragile. Like.
Right.
You can poke it; it's not gonna do anything. 'Cause
Right, yeah.
It's an elastic material. It'll go right back to its original.
People don't realize, I didn't realize as well how hardy this
that
is.
that's
This is not
This
going to
is
get,
aluminum, too,
yeah, that's
like-
not going to get damaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then these have, in order to keep them in place, these have an aluminum, a copper wire that holds them in place. And I don't know if you've seen it, but on YouTube, there's a guy destroying an MBL 101.
Really,
There's a guy literally taking a hammer to it.
trying to get it to
And at first, he couldn't get it. Like, he was like, boom, and the thing would just boom right back.
It's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, and he would hit it, and it could, like, they had to take like an axe and actually cut through it in order to rip it apart.
Anybody got an axe? Let's try. Actually, this is
Maybe
probably
after
your
the song
only,
demo.
yeah. After Doug buys them, then we'll go ahead and take anything for YouTube, right?
Anything for YouTube.
They're cool.
Yeah, they're cool.
So they look really nice. I mean, I like them without it.
Yeah, me too.
But even with them on, it still looks really nice.
Yeah, it'll help keep the mosquitoes away.
The mosquito.
In New Orleans, you got to worry about
That's
that, huh? It does look cool. I don't think this will add any resonant problems like I had with my grill, but I would take them off for critical listening.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Maybe if you just have kids coming over, just in case they want to mess with it. Not that they could do it, but why take the chance?
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, I think the weakest part of the speaker is down at the voice coil, especially at that mid bass, because you have so right down here, like where the spider is in the voice coil.
Yeah.
Like if somebody punches through it or like pokes through it and breaks it, that's probably gonna be bad, because once it starts vibrating, it's just gonna get worse, right? And then it's gonna rip.
It seems pretty well protected.
Yeah, and that's why they put these things here to protect it, right? Some people think they put them here so you can add LEDs and look cool, but no, it's to protect that voice coil.
This has the LEDs, this stand.
Yeah.
Ultrasonic stand. Got LEDs. An app that'll control the lighting. So, should we even listen, or are you just going to buy them?
Let's start listening to, what if we leave the MBLs for last?
Yeah. Okay, well, you want to leave them last? Yeah.
And then we'll start with something. Andy, give me a hand.
Which one you want to listen to
Which
first?
one you want, Rockport or YG?
We can do Rockport.
Rockport, let's do Rockport.
Maybe start off with the Bose.
Huh?
Bose speakers.
Let's
Start
do
off with
it.
those.
So something,
Pleasantly surprised by how solid those seem.
something
No,
interesting
they're gonna-
that, since we have speakers around, right? So if you're probably not gonna have this problem in your house, but whenever you're listening, try to short out the positive and negative terminals of the speakers that you're not listening to, so they don't act as a passive radiator and kind of mistime that bass and things like that. So you said Rockport, right?
Sure, that's not too much trouble.
That's it.
It got caught underneath.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me put it out here first, and then we can slide it. Okay.
What do you say the listening distance is from this chair here?
It's 115 inches, more or
Okay.
less. So we're keeping the triangle with all the speakers we're gonna put in. We're still
Keep
keeping
the
that stereo triangle,
exact triangle.
including the MBLs. So
Okay.
the MBLs, you know, they're a little bit more forgiving for speaker placement, but you still want to toe in that bass port towards that listening position, or maybe like 5 feet behind the listening position.
Does it roll off into what frequency does the bandpass roll off into? Do you know?
I have the information. I'll check for you and
Okay.
I'll give it to you.
Because yeah, I guess if it does get into direct, well, at least locatable bass frequencies, I guess.
It's so
But-
the idea is to
Because bass is directive, so
yes.
in theory it shouldn't be locatable if it's strictly sub bass, but some of these can roll off pretty high.
So the mid bass goes from 600 to 100. So the melon in the middle, and then the sub.
It's strictly under 100.
No, it goes a little bit above 100.
Okay.
Or just
Starts to
matches
roll,
right
starts
there.
to roll off,
Yeah.
so it probably will go into some frequencies that could be locatable.
I'm impressed with how solid that Rockport speaker
No, I mean,
is.
all of a sudden,
Yeah, this is probably the heaviest out of the three.
yeah, I mean, now that I'm a big believer in resonant characteristics, I've never seen, I know Magico puts a lot into their cabinetry, and I knew YG did, but this one
Magico
is,
seems to be more bracing.
Bracing,
stuff
yeah.
That they do.
and
So this is-
clever materials, but this is just pure density, like, you literally, I think it could hurt your knuckle if you really wrapped it too hard.
Yeah.
This thing, I mean, that is
it's probably
just,
more solid than your Tesla.
it's more solid than my house. I would rather knuckle wrap my brick house. And I have to say, driver-wise and looks, the Rockports have impressed me. They don't have the sexiness of the MBLs, but
They are nice.
they are very
Beautiful
beautiful.
lines on it.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
What I like is you can tell they probably put more into the performance aspect of the design versus just for looks purposes like some of the cheaper speakers do.
All right, I'm gonna lift it. Sorry. All right, so we're gonna get it. This one lining up with the.